The E30 engine is now serviced. I've changed the timing belt, I've changed the tensioner, and I've also painted up a few bits that were looking a bit too rusty. Now the engine's ready to go in. I'll have to check stuff like the wiring all over again. It's been a bit damaged. Also, the gearbox is now a bit shorter. So what has happened is the gap between over here, between the drive shaft and the output of the gearbox would be a little longer. So I'm gonna have to maybe mix and match drive shafts and figure something out over there, and that's how I'll manage that. So apart from that, there are a few things that will have to change as well. I think my power steering rack, which is actually a purple tag is out of an E46 Club Sport, so it's a lot faster. When you turn your steering wheel, it's just going to be a little faster than the stock one, and that's an upgrade that I did to this car when my steering rack went bad. But as time has passed, the seals over here have started leaking, so I'm gonna have to change the seals and get this serviced, and also I'm gonna be able to fit the engine now in here. I'm also gonna have to change this arm that's over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna search for it online and get a side profile picture, measure it up, and make a piece in sheet metal and reinforce that. So first off is getting this engine back in for now, and then figuring out stuff like gear shift linkages, power steering pump, stuff like that. I've taken off the pipes to and from the radiator, the thermostat, and stuff like that. And after taking this one off, that goes to the water pump, I found a weird goo-like substance. I have no idea what this stuff is. Maybe it's old coolant because the car's been sitting for too long. I have no clue, it's just weird. If anyone knows what that is, please tell me. I'd be happy to know. Or I don't know if I should be happy to know. But I'm going to change a water pump either way. This does not look good. And yeah, I'm going to have to take off this fan clutch. Then I'll be able to access the bolts for the water pump. Here's the water pump for the E30. It needs a gasket when I'm fitting it, a paper gasket. So I don't really have it anymore, or maybe it didn't come with it, and I need to trace it out. So I came up with an idea. And here's what we get. What I'll have to do is I'll have to cut out this inner circle, then cut out this outline, and then trace it onto the gasket paper. I've now cut out the stencil for the gasket, and I'll be using this gasket paper. And that's it. That's how I easily made this gasket for the water pump. I've already disconnected the brake lines over here, so now the brakes are free. What I'll have to do is remove this lower arm mount from both sides. So that's 4 bolts in total. Another 2 bolts over here, one here. This is for the subframe. One here, one here. And I've also disconnected the steering linkage for the rack. And then the whole thing should drop down. But the shock absorbers will still hold it in place. So I'll have to drop the car on the ground, release the shock absorbers, and then roll the whole thing forward. Now that we've removed the subframe mounts, the subframe has dropped. Now we have to just remove the top shock mounts. I've now got the subframe off along with the wheels and everything else, and I'm gonna drop the engine onto the subframe. now got the engine in. Now all we have to do is tighten up the subframe bolts and the lower arm bolts. I've started with the shock absorber top mounts, and then I went to the subframe mounts and the lower arm bolts. So yeah, then what I'd have to do is prop the transmission in place. Now that the engine is mounted in place, I'll have to fill in this gap over here between the gearbox and the drive shaft. So what I'll have to do is take off the exhaust, take off the this shield, take off the drive shafts, and find one which will match, or I'll have to lengthen this drive shaft. I've taken off the drive shaft from the E30, and it's a bit shorter. I measured it as something around 11.7 centimeters too short. But I also have this extra one out of an E34, which is a 5 series, and it's much longer. So what I'll have to do now is I'll have to send this to a lathe shop or somebody who specializes in shortening drive shafts, shorten the E34 one, and get it to the correct length. And then I can further proceed with this car. And yeah, for now what I'll have to do is I'll have to keep it parked. I'll just put everything back, whatever I can, and send these drive shafts for the drive shaft for shortening. The E30 is parked now. The engine's safely in the engine bay. I'll have to now do the wiring, do the drive shaft, so that's going to take a bit of time. Shortening the drive shaft from the E34. So that's why I've put the car back here. I don't think I'll do it. It'll take more than a month or two to get that drive shaft back. I'll probably have to send it out of Goa to do it. I'll have to do the wiring on this car and the ECU, so that's something I can do in the meanwhile. I'll also have to modify the pedal box or use the one I sourced from an E34, or I'll have to wait for another E30 to come in for work that's expected in a few months. But I'd rather just try and figure that out for now. And in the meanwhile, I'll be working on the other projects, quite a few over here. But this will take priority. I'll be getting stuff sorted in the meanwhile. And till the drive shaft is back, I'll have to wait a bit. I'm also working on some parts for the NE118, like this spoiler. This is all 3D printed. That'll be in the next video. And yeah, I have to work a bit on the wagon. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys next time. And we'll be working on the NE. So stay tuned for the next episode. Bye-bye.